Hello, everybody. Wow. I tell everybody when I grow up I want to be Ed Ott, so this is quite an honor. Should be on. Okay. It's okay, I can scream. Don't worry. I don't need a mic. Thank you so much for this great award. I'm really so honored to be here tonight. In 1998, when a group of us went to found the Taxi Workers Alliance, we needed a space, a place to call home. And we found that home at a corner desk in the corner office of the Brecht Forum. You know, it wasn't like the Adam Smith School of Economics that gave us that space. You know what I'm saying? There's a reason that the Brecht Forum was able to recognize the importance of a new organizing project. You know, they had a faith in us. They had the vision, the imagination. They had that sense of hope, and ultimately, they had that deep sense of solidarity, which really, to me, embodies what the Brecht Forum has been for over 35 years. You know, there are many stories to tell about the taxi industry, but I want to tell you two of them over just the past couple of months. I think many of you may have heard that in early August, one of our members, Ahmed Sharif, was attacked during a hate crime. He had picked up a passenger in Midtown at about 6 in the evening, and what started out as very friendly banter, you know, he'd ask Ahmed, you know, where are you from? Are you Muslim? How long have you been here? How long have you been a driver? And then he suddenly turned into very aggressive questions about, are you practicing Ramadan? And made a lot of, you know, crude comments about Islam and about Ramadan. Sorry, there's such an echo in here. Okay. So, you know, it started out as really friendly talk, and then all of a sudden, this really young kid, like in his early 20s, turned around and said to Ahmed, you know, I'm taking you to the checkpoint. I'm bringing Abdullah to the checkpoint. And he took out a knife and he slashed him across the neck. Then he slashed him on the face and he cut him up on the arm. You know, when the police came, well, actually, after he did this, he ran out, and Ahmed had the incredible you know, strength to keep driving. And this kid was running northbound, the street was northbound, and then when Ahmed saw a police officer, he got out completely bleeding, you know, soaked in his blood, and he walked up to the police officer and told him that this man had just stabbed him. And, you know, they were able to make the arrest, and the case is still pending. You know, nobody, unfortunately, on the street actually came to his aid. Nobody, you know, had called for help on his behalf. But when he was on that street corner and the ambulance came to him, he said, I don't want to be taken to the ambulance until my union comes. And he demanded that his union be there with him. And so when we saw Ahmed at the emergency room, you know, I mean, we couldn't describe just the amount of sorrow and horror that we felt. I mean, the wounds were so deep, and you know, he was soaked in so much blood. You know, he could barely talk, and he kept pointing to his neck while, you know, he kept telling me, this is what he did to me, this is what he did to me. When I got out of the ER room and there was already many drivers, his friends that had gathered, immediately each of us looked at each other and said, this is a result of the rhetoric around the so-called Ground Zero Mosque. And this was, clearly a hate crime. And, I think this story is really important because in that moment, we had a choice to make. We'd been fighting for the Taxi Driver Protection Act, which would make an assault on a driver a felony and finally give us protection after years and years of fighting for a law, which has not existed, even though taxi drivers are 60 times more likely to be killed on the job than any other worker in the US, and 80 times more likely to be robbed than any other worker. But yet, we've had no protections under the law. But in that moment, we made a decision that rather than in a narrow focus advancing just our specific legislation, we wanted to raise awareness around a larger social issue, which was the growing fear-mongering against Muslim Americans in the US. And for an organization that's not exclusively Muslim, it was a moment that I think really speaks volumes for that kind of unity that our membership has been able to build. I remember after 9/11, where we had tires slashed and profanities were carved into the taxis, I remember many of our Latino brothers, when they were asked, "Are you Muslim?" they would say, "Yes, I am," proudly. And so, so we did this, we immediately did a press conference with, around Ahmed's case. And before, police hadn't come out with the report, the media actually found out about the incident because of us. And afterwards, the police were, they had to put out many statements acknowledging what had happened. And we did a press conference with Ahmed at the steps of City Hall 2 days after he got out of the hospital. And he just had so much, really resilience and such vision to stand up there with his brothers and sisters and really call for a moment of tolerance and a moment of intelligence to say, we need to take a pause here and see what's really happening inside of our city. And to us, it's really telling that even though this whole, the whole term of, Islamophobia and so many attacks against mosques had become really common throughout the country, but it was not a stockbroker, it was not a doctor, it was not an engineer that was slashed across that neck. It was a working person. It was a service worker. It was a taxi driver. And so, we recognize that in each one of our social issues, it is the working class that stands at the front lines. And if we're going to stand on the front lines of attack, you better believe we're going to stand on the front lines of resistance. After Ahmed's attack, we started to receive emails and phone calls and letters and cards in the mail from people throughout this country. There are people who said, I was listening to the Tea Party, I was thinking about it, and I saw this happen and it changed my mind. Literally, these were messages that came through. There were people who said, I live in the Midwest, I don't know any Muslim, I am a good church-going Christian, but this is not what I stand for. There was a soldier who sent a card in to us. There were unemployed Americans who sent in cards and checks saying, I know what it's like to have to feed my family with no income coming in. And I understand that after you've been assaulted and brutally injured, your family too will suffer in this same way. And so as an act of solidarity, I want to send you a part of my unemployment check. That is humanity. And you know, for us, it's really become one of the proudest